Yo, what's good, everybody? In just a few hours, the new season pass in Marvel Snap is dropping, and I wanted to give my thoughts on MODOK and how you can build decks around him. MODOK is going to be the new season pass card, and thankfully, it doesn't seem like he's a meta-breaking card. He's a really nice one. He's a 5 energy, 8 power card. And on reveal, he's going to discard your entire hand. This is going to help make discard a lot more viable of an option. You're going to be seeing a lot more Hela decks, or even Apocalypse ends up becoming a lot more relevant. There's a lot of cards that work really well with MODOK, and I'm going to show you a few decks that I built that I'm going to try out right away with this new MODOK card tonight on my Twitch stream. I'll leave the link in the description below. And of course, the first kind of deck that we want to talk about is a MODOK budget deck, because even if you're early to pool 3 or you're not even in pool 3 yet, you can still utilize MODOK and make a really good deck, and that's because of Strong Guy. Strong Guy is going to be the big time key of this deck. If your hand is empty, he's gonna get +6 power. So the goal of this entire deck is to have a bunch of important 1, 2, and 3 drop cards that you're going to be placing out on curve, and then on turn 4 we're going to put out Strong Guy, and on turn 5 we're going to put out MODOK, discard our entire hand, and then on turn 6 we know that America Chavez is going to be there, and it's basically going to allow us to have a big turn 6 with Strong Guy becoming 10 power and America Chavez always reliably being played. Some of the smaller cards that we have in here are going to be guys like Mr. Fantastic that spread their power, Lizard, who's pretty much just the best 2-drop in the game. You got Cosmo, who's going to allow you to have some sort of control. The two kind of all-stars of the lower cost cards are gonna be Wolverine and Swarm. If MODOK cuts Swarm, then all of a sudden you have 2 3-power cards that you could play for 0 cost. That's gonna help your turn 6 and give you an even bigger play. And of course, Wolverine getting cut on turn 5 is just gonna throw him back onto the board with 4 power. Yes, 4 power is not necessarily that much, but 4 power for free is always great. It turns your turn 5 MODOK plays into essentially a 12 power play on the board, plus another 6 power from Swarm for turn 6. The next deck I want to talk about is basically a pool 3 upgrade to that deck, which I think is going to be really powerful. We got Colleen Wing in there, we got Polaris and Maximus. Those are the only pool 3 cards that we're adding. Colleen Wing is already a 4 power 2-cost card that's really good, and if she gets in there and she cuts Wolverine or Swarm, it allows you to have a little more consistency, and it maybe adds to the amount of swarms that are in your hand for MODOK to cut. Plus, Maximus and Polaris are pretty much the strongest 3-drops that you can find. The third deck I want to talk about is a Hela deck, because I know that everybody is super excited about possibly making Hela a really good card. I'm going to put a warning on this one. I don't know how this is going to perform. Hela has been notoriously inconsistent the entire time that she's been around. So I kind of feel a little bit like this may be much of the same, especially since MODOK discards your entire hand. So if you can't play him behind Invisible Woman, this kind of becomes a really just sort of bad casino deck where if MODOK ends up discarding Hela, you're likely to lose. Can we help the consistency by adding America Chavez? Yes, probably. You could replace Giganto or even Infina with America Chavez, but the entire idea behind this deck is to use it as a Hela deck. We want Morbius in a ton of these types of decks, especially when you're relying on a lot of other discard cards. The reason we didn't have Morbius in the Strong Guy deck is because we're literally only relying on 1 card to discard. And so if that doesn't work out, Morbius ends up being a 0 power card that didn't work out for you. Over here, our entire goal is just to discard everything. We got Lady Sif, we got Hellcow, we have Death in the deck to prevent Lady Sif from cutting Hella. We end up having Ghost Rider to bring back a card. We're not necessarily relying on MODOK as a must play in this deck. MODOK is there if you get Invisible Woman out and you basically just put him behind her. But the rest of it kind of plays out like a standard Hella deck. And finally, the deck I'm most excited to play is this MODOK collector deck, and I honestly believe that this is probably going to end up being the strongest type of MODOK deck. We have Morbius out there. Like I said, Morbius is going to be incredibly strong with MODOK. We have the collector, who's going to work out really well with Swarm and with Helicarrier. He's not going to be an unbelievably overpowered card. We never really see the collector be that strong, but with Helicarrier in here, it makes MODOK a totally different kind of archetype. Your opponent is never going to really know exactly what your turn 6 is going to end up being, because MODOK cuts all the cards in your hand. And hopefully you've got Swarm, Wolverine, and Helicarrier in there. You end up with a bunch of extra Swarms. You end up with a Wolverine on the board. Then you end up with Helicarrier adding 3 random cards to your hand. And if those 3 cards are really good, then you get to change your strategy and keep your opponent off guard on turn 6. Now, the consistency of this deck is gonna rely on Apocalypse. Apocalypse is going to be an absolute stud in this deck. You're going to have Lady Sif presumably cutting him, and you're going to have MODOK cutting him as well. So pretty much no matter what, if everything plays out the way that it's supposed to, you're going to have yourself a 16 power Apocalypse, and you're going to have Dracula out there that's going to hopefully cut Apocalypse at the end. Now, the only issue with Dracula in this deck is that if Helicarrier gives you a bunch of small cards, you kind of have to play those cards out on turn 6 so that your Dracula cuts something big like America Chavez or Apocalypse. And Ghost Rider being in the deck is if you can't end up getting MODOK off, well, hopefully you get Lady Sif off and you can end up bringing back Helicarrier. Of course, this is all just theory crafting. I'm sure there's going to be ways to improve each deck as we test them out. I'm going to be testing on my Twitch stream tonight. I am super pumped about the season pass. I'm looking forward to using MODOK. I'm looking forward to the new bundle. And if you didn't hear, they're looking to nerf Zabu and Surfer. Everybody's kind of assuming that that's going to happen today. So I'm really hyped about what's going on in Marvel Snap right now. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, it helps out a ton, and I hope you have yourself a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you so much for watching.